everyone, welcome to Green Angle, the show that explores the environment we live in and the ecological problems we face while preferring sustainable solutions. I am Ugochi Olibo. On this episode of the program, we speak to a professor of journalism and media studies, Rhodes University, South Africa, on her passion for the environment and the issues surrounding the ecosystem in our home country, South Africa. Anthea Germain shares with us her concern for the disappearing biodiversity.
I become more and more aware of, or I pay more and more attention to the impacts we human beings, you know, the sort of massive impact we're having on the planet. And I think some of it is sort of driven by that strange sort of sense that our planet is so big that we can't have an impact on it. But, you know, think about the people who exterminated the buffalo in the US. You know, when there were millions and millions and millions of buffalo, these people just shot and shot and shot and shot. And that accumulating impact of a person upon a person upon a person upon a person. So I think, you know, just very, very conscious at the moment that we might kill our planet. You know, we might exterminate our species. We don't seem to be capable of thinking that actually we might have passed the point of no return, you know. When you start to pay attention, it becomes overwhelming. If you take climate change, you know, with the US pulling out of the, you know, the Paris Accord, you know, so if the biggest polluter in the world, you know, refuses to take responsibility or to think cogently about what they're doing, I think we are past the point of return.
Can the planet still be fixed, we asked?
It's very hard to know. I suppose maybe this is part of the problem, is that how do I make that assessment? You know, I can only make that assessment on what I read and what people tell me and what I see, and, you know, so being informed is utterly crucial. But it is hard to kind of, because it's on a very large scale. But I think, you know, the seriousness of something should not drive us into despair, you know, of a kind of like, oh, well, then it really doesn't matter, there's nothing I can do. We have to behave responsibly and well and thoughtfully and carefully. So I think it's incumbent on every single one of us, you know, to do what we should do and to be thoughtful and to be careful. And then, you know, maybe it's incumbent on us to, you know, to be loud and to be critical and to be outspoken about, you know, actions that have been taken on our behalf as people who live on this planet that are dangerous, extremely dangerous to our future.
Businesses can reverse the catastrophic impacts of climate change, and Anthea believes they play a huge role in the drive for a cleaner future.
Part of the way business is calculated, that it takes into account both the sort of raw materials it uses and the waste it produces. If all those things were accounted into the financial, you know, costs that businesses were running on, you know, businesses wouldn't be able to generate the massive profits they do because they'd have to clean up behind themselves. On the way to the airport to get on the plane to come here, there's a section outside Port Elizabeth where, you know, very much needed investment. It's around a port. So, you know, people are putting in warehouses and factories and all sorts of things. That's absolutely amazing. You know, the city of Port Elizabeth needs the income and they need the jobs. But what they're doing simultaneously is along this section of coast, you know, right next to the sea and right next to the dunes, they've just taken in bulldozers and they've raised everything. So within the space of a couple of months, what was bush, you know, and an ecosystem no longer exists. Now, I don't think there's been any, you know, I don't know, I'd have to go and look it up, but, you know, I don't think there's been any sort of thoughtfulness about how you pay attention to the existence of the natural world, while also, so I think these problems are just too big for us to grapple with. We want jobs, we want income, we want foreign investment. You know, what's got to give? The planet's got to give, you know, the planet can go. So, you know, that makes me very, very despairing, because I think what we are still not doing in either business or politics is factoring in the very long-term costs.
The South African economy is driven by the mining industry and is also dependent on nuclear energy. This, Anthea thinks, is a no-no, and one the South African government must rethink.
The thing is, I've just come out of ThinkFest, which is the public lecture series from the National Arts Festival. And Andrew Feinstein, who's a very, very interesting researcher, runs a thing called Corruption Watch UK, has been looking into the arms industry. And one of the things he talked about when he was, you know, is nuclear power. It's absolutely crazy. You know, there is just no way anybody on the planet should be doing anything nuclear. It's completely crazy. The powers that have experimented with nuclear are, you know, going, let's get out of this. We can't have radioactive waste that we bequeath to the next 100,000 years of human beings to sort out. There is no solution for nuclear waste, absolutely none. And one isn't going to be found. So I hope something dramatic, you know, that South Africans really do stand up against that unbelievably stupid political idea. It's a crazy, crazy idea embedded in very deep corruption between South Africa and Russia. It's totally crazy. We've got in too deep. We didn't start these things at the beginning with a consciousness of the consequences. That's the great failing of business-minded thinking. That's also, you know, to sort of bring it back to the concept we're talking today about innovation. Innovation is pretty crazy when it just rushes ahead with a great idea. It's got to ask about the consequences. It's got to ask about the effects. You can't just have brilliant ideas that you... So, I mean, one of the things that sort of drives me a little crazy is that incredible sort of mobile device that actually connects me to the world and makes me functional as a lecturer and a researcher and a teacher and as a journalist. You know, that thing has a horrible, horrible history of extractive minerals and inequity and waste when it's only had a very short life, you know. How do we reconcile these two things? It's very complicated.
She says environmental education and advocacy, as well as the need to connect with nature very early in life, is vital for the well-being of man and the planet.
There's a very good reason in, you know, allowing, say, somebody like you, who when you were in your formative days, to have, you know, that concentrated teaching or exposure or whatever. Those things are very good. But I think that they then only touch the absolutely passionate and committed. I think we've got to embed in everything we do and all the thinking we do, we've got to embed an environmental consciousness. You know, that's the thing that's so impressive about some of these school systems that take play so seriously, because it's not play in a classroom, it's play outside. I think we're losing that kind of aspect of children's lives where they play in the soil, they dig up the earthworms, they climb the trees, yeah. You know, yes, you know, they get into a relationship with nature. I think it's terribly important, because I think once you've embedded, maybe not so much all the information, but you know, if you've had a relationship with a tree, I've had lots of relationships with lots of trees when I was a child. You know, there were trees I loved lying in because of the way they sounded. There were places I loved reading, you know, all those sort of things. You can't get that out of your, when you've actually integrated it into, you know, who you are and how you think, and in your experience of life. So some of the virtual world kind of worries me, because I think it minimizes both the body, you know, the embodied physical experience of being a human, and it kind of separates us from the planet.
And in Nigeria, we speak to a youth activist who has experienced the difficulties of life in the Niger Delta.
I was privileged to stay in Warri for some time, and when I got there, I discovered that contrary to what people are saying about these people, it's quite different. Then what is the agitation about? What is the concern? The environment has been degraded, has been damaged. you know, and I also happened to experience all this they did. You know, I told the story of when I went to fetch a bucket of water and was filled with oil. We have to leave it to settle and we have to scoop the oil from it. This is what these people pass through. They can no longer fish, they can no longer plant because their soil, their waters have been seriously damaged. Fine, government says they are doing something about it. But the truth is that if you actually go down there, you discover that these people are still going through hell. For how long do they do this? And it's affecting their health. But nobody is saying this. The organizations are saying they are doing their social responsibility, their corporate social responsibility, but the people are not feeling it. Now, what do they need to do? Just like we do, we engage youth. They need to engage the people. They need to engage the youth. What do you actually want? You know, I had a story of a company building schools and pipe-borne water, constructing it in the community. And the women, they neglected that. And they were still going to the stream to fetch their water. Why? They said they enjoy it. It's a form of exercise for them. You know, they shout on their way going and a lot of things. So that means they were not carried along before that project was run. So you need to engage the people. What do you actually want? If you actually take a tour to the Niger Delta and you stay there for a night or 2 or 3 days, you will know what these people are agitating for. And you will know that it is real. Only that some elements of people are taking advantage of this. No doubt about that. But the real people are actually going through a lot as a result of the environment. Oil. We got oil, it was a blessing to the nation, but now is it not a cause? It was a gain, but now is it not a pain? So these are the things we actually need to address and to tackle.
He shares his thought on the urgency of cleaning up the world's most polluted oil region.
People say that South is expensive. They say it's because of the oil workers. No, the people no longer farm or can no longer farm because their soil, their land have been damaged. They can no longer fish because their riverine, their rivers have been polluted. You know, these are the angles through which we took our entries and we told a story about it.
That's our program for today. You can always send your comments and suggestions using the addresses on your screen. And remember, if you do have a green project or idea or an event, it can make the show if you send us a photo or a video. I am Ugochi Olibo. Bye now.